Holy smoke, what's going on? It's Ding-a-ling Fireman coming to the rescue. He's got his own built-in pumper to save the day.
The 70s would seem unreal to a child today. The daily life of a 70s child was nothing short of an adventure, and if you were lucky enough to have witnessed any of it, then you understand why it's intriguing, chaotic, and also a huge buzz. It's Memory Surge. My name is Kevin, and we reveal the 20 things only 1970s kids remember. Let's get to it right after you subscribe, of course. Rotary phones. Rotary phones came at a time when wire communication was the biggest breakthrough of the era. However, making a phone call wasn't as easy as pushing a few buttons, like today's phones. There were no swipes and no speed dials. Also, the phone was firmly fixed either on the wall or seated on a table, so you had to walk over to the phone anytime you wanted to use it. Once you picked up the receiver, you had to spin the numbered dial and allow the mechanism to rotate back into place each time. Phone numbers that came with a few zeros took even longer to dial. If you made a single mistake while dialing, you had to start all over. The rotary phone also came with thick, coiled cords that always seemed to tangle up no matter what, and you had no privacy as the cord kept you just a few inches away from the phone box. Of course, there were no contact lists on the rotary phone, so you had to either memorize every phone number you or walk around with a diary that had all the numbers written down. The process of making a single call was indeed tedious. That's why every call seemed special or perhaps necessary. Milk came in thick glass bottles. Before carton milk took over, there was a time when milk came in thick glass bottles, delivered right to your doorstep early in the mornings by the neighborhood milkman. This rich, creamy goodness wasn't from the manufacturing industries where they may have undergone various processes. Rather, they were fresh, wholesome milk from farms. Some households had milk delivered every few days, but what about the empty bottle? They were rinsed and left outside for pickup. It was all part of the delivery requirements. Every morning, when you heard that clinking bottle sound, you knew the milkman was around. Saturday morning cartoons. Saturday mornings were the highlight of childhood as kids looked forward to sitting in front of the television for hours to watch Saturday morning cartoons. It was a well-earned weekend activity. No chores, no school, and particularly no adults. Just a bowl of your favorite cereal and hours of your favorite animation. Shows like Scooby-Doo, Bugs Bunny, The Jetsons, Fat Albert, and others, each with its own theme song. There were no DVRs, no streaming, and no repeat broadcasts. So if you missed it, too bad. You'd have to wait till next Saturday. Smell of fresh Ditto copies. If you ever went to school in the 70s, you definitely remember the oddly sweet smell of fresh Ditto copies. Teachers back then used spirit duplicators, and when they passed out those purple-inked worksheets in class, every kid probably did the exact same thing, held the paper up to their noses and took a long whiff of the freshly inked copies. It was both soothing and satisfying, a combination of magic marker and glue scent. For some reason, it was addictive, and kids didn't care if the purple ink left a smudge on their fingers or sleeves. As much as smelling the Ditto papers was a fascination for kids, it also came with a bit of a scare. A surprise quiz might literally be close at hand.
Steve Engler's lunchbox collection is a wall of colorful characters.
Metal lunchboxes with cartoon characters. How about those lunchboxes that made elementary school exceptionally fun? These were no ordinary lunchboxes. They were metal lunchboxes with cartoon characters printed on them. Your lunchbox said everything about you. It was your identity. Teachers could tell if a child was in school by simply looking around for their distinct lunchbox. The characters on the lunchboxes were often cartoon characters like Flintstones or TV shows like Star Wars, Charlie's Angels, or The $6 Million Man. Kids would often compare each other's lunchbox characters and debate over who had more superior characters. The debate never got old. Over time, the metal boxes would either develop rust, get pretty banged up, or get scratched. But somehow, the artwork always hung on. The metals were later ditched for plastic boxes to make the school safer for kids.
I'm climbing the tree. I'm climbing the tree.
Go climb.
Climbing trees and drinking from the garden hose. Before the internet and long before smartphones, climbing trees and drinking from the garden hose was practically a childhood rite of passage. Kids depended on physical activities to occupy their time, so this included some of the most daring acts like climbing trees, sometimes for fun, other times to pluck fruits, but almost always with scratches on the arms as a badge of honor. Tree branches were also a great lookout spot, allowing kids to get a good view of the neighborhood. After hours of climbing, kids would quench their thirst by drinking from the garden hose. The nozzle usually had more pressure than desired, so kids always got themselves soaked, but it was worth it for some sun-heated water with a smidge of rubbery taste. Watch The Ed Sullivan Show with the family. Every Sunday night was special. It was a time to gather around the television to watch The Ed Sullivan Show with the family. It was a popular program watched by almost every family nationwide. The moment the theme music hit the screens and Ed shuffled out with his delivery, everyone knew they were about to see something unforgettable. No one could predict what special act would be on air. One week it could be a comedy act like George Carlin, or perhaps a circus act. The next week it might feature the Jackson 5, the Beatles, or the great Elvis. It was a whole fun for the family, filled with laughter, commentary, and more. As usual, there were no rewinds or replays, so if you missed the show, you'd have to wait for gossip.
And you get that sling back loop, so if you prefer that.
TV also had only 3 channels. Back in the day, your television set was a chunky wood-paneled box, a far cry from the sophisticated digital flat screens we have today. The wooden TV blended with the furniture to add to the aesthetics. And that's not all. Your TV also had only 3 channels, usually CBS, NBC, and ABC. In some cases, you may get a rough UHF station that may add to the mix if you could get it to show clearly by adjusting the rabbit ear antennas. Changing channels was as simple as turning a knob on the TV itself, but you had to leave your seat and come to the TV as there were no remote control devices. This also meant that you sometimes had to watch whatever was on air, especially when you couldn't be bothered to change channels manually. When a popular program came on, you were almost certain that the whole neighborhood was tuned in, watching the same program at once.
So you can say that again.
That's amazing.
Carrot greens into cloth.
Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Rogers. Remember Captain Kangaroo and Mr. Rogers? Mornings before school were never the same without these satisfying programs. Captain Kangaroo and his sidekicks like Mr. Green Jeans and animated shorts like Tom Terrific would take you through a dream world. And then there's Mr. Rogers, the soft-spoken man who looked straight into the camera and made you feel special. He would change into his sweater and sneakers, feed his fish, and take you to the neighborhood of make-believe where puppets told stories. This light-hearted program gave kids a boost before their day even began.
Everyone scream in protest in a town square or any public.
Transistor radios. Transistor radios were the simplest form of private entertainment, and the best part is they could fit right in your pocket. If you owned a transistor radio as a teen, you were certainly one of the coolest kids, as others would often gather around to listen to the newest music either after school hours or in the evenings. The radio was usually made of plastic and had little metal antennas that could stretch a few inches upwards. It was common to get frequent static while trying to find your favorite AM station. In some cases, you'd even push the record button once your favorite songs came on to record them on a cassette. It was your own personal gateway to the world when it comes to news, sports, programs, and music.
Stock up with a terrific new Busy Day dessert.
JellO in every color and shape. In the 1970s, one of America's favorite desserts was JellO in every color and shape. It had transcended the regular basic shapes and style, and had become an art form that could take on any color, shape, or look, and always gave its identity away by that wobbly and wiggly texture. It was the highlight of birthday parties, and was also served in the school cafeteria. It often became a currency for exchange in schools, as you could trade your JellO for perhaps a sandwich or even meatballs. It came in a rainbow of colors, bright orange, cherry red, blue, and others. It was Mom and Grandma's favorite kitchen companion and had entire cupboards dedicated to JellO molds. These gelatin creations were often stacked in layers and filled with floating pieces of canned fruit, pretzels, marshmallows, whipped cream, and even nuts. Some of them were often a gamble, but still came out pretty tasty. And let's not forget JellO Pudding Pops, a magical treat, made frozen and absolutely irresistible on a hot summer day.
And when I like someone, I give a gift from Penny Candy.
Penny candy at the corner store. There was no thrill quite like walking into the corner store near your home with a pocket full of coins, specially saved up for nothing else but penny candy. Oh yes, penny candy at the corner store was just as good as walking into Disneyland. Okay, maybe not that good, but it was such a rush, endless choices to be made, and pure freedom in the form of coins. It was going to be a sugary noon for sure. Kids would press their faces up to the glass or plastic container, carefully choosing what candy types and flavors were at the top of their fantasy list. There were sugary syrups, licorice ropes, pixie sticks, bubblegum cigars, fireballs, jawbreakers, and for the love of God, peanut butter Mary Janes. You had to be strategic and take your time. This was serious business for kids. Of course, the stern shop owner would often hurry you up with long stares, but it didn't matter as long as you got a good variety. Once the treats were wrapped in brown paper bags, the lengthy counting of pennies began, a process that made you feel like you were making a bank deposit. Before you left the store, your tongue was already a wild shade of red, purple, and blue. The FisherPrice chatter telephone. Kids in the 70s rarely had the privilege of owning an actual phone, but you know what they did have: the FisherPrice chatter telephone, the adorably goofy little rotary toy on wheels that came with googly blue eyes that wiggled and a smiling red plastic mouth. Its rotary dials made a satisfying clickety-click as kids spun the dials with their little fingers. The toy would make a chattering sound, and the googly eyes would move up and down when you pulled its string. For kids, it was like having a phone and a pet all in one toy. For many kids, it was their first conversation tool, and they would often mimic mom and dad holding the receiver to their ears and babbling. It was only as fun as a child's imagination could make it. Sock hops and school dances. As a kid or early teen in the 70s, sock hops and school dances were a big deal, and parents took pride in preparing their kids, especially for their first school dance. What made these sock hops so special? You see, the term sock hop started in the 50s, and many schools still used the name and style, especially for elementary and middle school events that were held in the gymnasium or the cafeteria after school hours. It was a special day to get fancy. Kids would dress in their best attire, maybe some bell-bottoms, a polyester shirt with a loud pattern, or a flowy dress with knee socks. There were no rules or dress codes in most cases, but you certainly dressed to impress. Here comes the fun part. You sometimes had to take off your shoes before entering the gym to keep the gym floor from getting scratched. Music played from a big PA system or a record player, and the playlist was purely 70s gold. The Bee Gees, KC, and the Sunshine Band, Donna Summer, and perhaps a bit of ABBA or Elton John. The dim lights and disco ball provided the perfect groove atmosphere, and boys would walk up to girls to ask for a dance. It was usually fun-filled, with the occasional slip and falls, which can be inevitable when socks meet polished wooden floors.
Lincoln Logs are just as much fun today as they were when you played with them.
Lincoln Logs and Tinker toys. Before the digital age and the distractions that came with it, fun was mostly created by hands-on resourcefulness, and nothing could beat the open-ended fun of Lincoln Logs and Tinker toys. Lincoln Logs came in those iconic green cardboard canisters with lids that never quite fit right. Inside the canister were smooth wooden sticks, rough at the ends, used to build miniature log cabins. There was something deeply satisfying about stacking the logs up, crisscrossing the walls, and finishing with that green roof. It was like building a home off-grid for the rest of your toys. Then came the Tinker toys, a colorful mix of wooden spools, rods, and wheels that looked like something you would find in the lab of a mad scientist. It brought your creativity to life, and you could build just about anything: windmills, spaceships, robots, whatever you wanted. Some creations were immobile, while the exceptionally talented kids could make pulley systems, pendulums, merry-go-rounds, and other forms of artistic contraptions that could move. These toys required patience and creativity. They helped kids improve their problem-solving skills and even made them better structural thinkers. The only problem, the pieces were often scattered around the room, and the cleanup was usually time-consuming, but worth it.
His mighty hero.
Stretch Armstrong. How about this rubbery toy that got kids losing their minds? Stretch Armstrong was unlike any other toy that kids owned. It was one of a kind, and for some reason, it was appealing, not just to kids, but also to adult collectors. Stretch was a muscular toy in human form with blonde hair and a larger-than-life expression on its face. He certainly looked like he could take on anyone. But the real magic happened when you picked it up. You could grab the toy by the arm and leg and stretch as far as the rubber would allow, and something interesting would happen. It would slowly ooze its way back to shape no matter what. It was always fascinating for kids, and they would try to test the limits of the toy by stretching it in all directions and watching it return to shape. Inside the toy was some form of gelatinous goo that felt weirdly alive. If the liquid ever spilled, it was the end for the toy, but that seemed impossible, as most kids confirmed that the toy was indestructible. Stretch was everything to kids: a play toy, a science experiment, a collectible, and a stress reliever to squeeze on. Stretch didn't shoot missiles or talk, but he was one of the best toys for every little boy. ScoobyDoo, Where Are You? If you were a 70s kid, chances are your Saturday mornings weren't complete without the classic cartoon ScoobyDoo Where Are You? This TV show comes with that funky blend of haunted mansions, crazy chasing scenes, and plot twists that leave you pleasantly surprised. Every mystery is solved with the same gang: Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and the ever-hungry Scooby. Whenever you saw the van called the Mystery Machine driving through some foggy location, it was certainly go time, and you could expect the unexpected. There were always ghouls to catch, such as mummies, ghosts, and glow-in-the-dark monsters creeping around. And the gang always manages to find themselves running for their lives while trying to solve the cases. Oh, and who could forget the iconic ScoobyDoo Where Are You theme song, which usually kicks in when the gang is on the run. Of course, we know how it all ends. Scooby-Doo and the gang catch the bad guy, solve the mystery, and Scooby gets his reward, the delicious Scooby snacks. Schoolhouse Rock. You probably didn't realize it at that time, but while you were nodding your head to the Conjunction Junction song or the I'm Just a Bill song on Schoolhouse Rock, you were getting some serious life lessons and probably more education than some textbooks. The kids' TV show Schoolhouse Rock aired during commercial breaks on Saturday mornings. The show turned school subjects such as math, civics, grammar, and science into catchy animated music videos that made learning cool. Songs like 3 is a Magic Number and Interplanet Janet got stuck in your head for days. The songs were barely more than 3 minutes, but they were brilliant and left kids humming them at lunch hours or at home.
Be sure you have the new unbreakable shatterproof Miracle Clackers. Look for Miracle Clackers in this package.
Clackers. This simple play toy is called Clackers. It may not look like much, but in the 70s they were fun. Toys that kept kids busy for hours on end. They were made of 2 hard acrylic balls attached to a thin string with a loop in the middle. Once you tugged the string up and down to achieve the perfect rhythm, the acrylic balls smacked into each other, above and below, creating the clacking sound. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? The reality was a bit more painful. The clacking often caused small problems, such as bruised knuckles and accidental projectiles that may hit someone else or even the user in a dangerous way. Clackers were addictive and weirdly hypnotic, not to mention loud and flashy, but they were also chaotic. Polaroid Camera. In an era when pictures took time to print and film rolls had to be developed at drugstores before you could see if mom closed her eyes in the photo, there came a new technology that took over, mostly because it was kind of instant and didn't need any photo labs for development. This was the Polaroid Camera. It could easily be carried around and even worn around the neck. All you had to do was push a button and out slid a square photo, which was still wet and colorless. But when you waved the photo around for a few seconds, the magic happens. The cloudy rectangle develops into a full-colored image with a white frame. Oftentimes, it had slightly oversaturated tones, but was perfect for the 70s. Polaroids were everywhere and became a necessary tool for parties, school dances, family cookouts, and other events. It was instant, no waiting, and certainly no negatives. Which of these do you remember as a kid? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more sweet memories of the past. Thanks for watching.